Our project is on molarity by Sarah and V. Molarity is the way to express the concentration of a solution. It is also called molar concentration.
It measures the number of moles of a solute dissolved in 1 liter of solution. The formula of molarity is the number of moles over the liter of a solution, or the number of moles over volume. The units for molarity are moles over liters. Next, we are going to do an experiment that demonstrates molarity. We're going to do an experiment on molarity. So basically we have 1 gram of copper 2 sulfate. We have 5 grams of copper 2 sulfate, 2 stirring rods, and 2 beakers filled with 100 milliliters of water. Now let's start the experiment. Place 1 gram of copper 2 sulfate into the 100 milliliters of water. Stir until it's completely dissolved. The 5 grams of copper 2 sulfate into the 100 milliliters of water. Stir until it's completely dissolved. Now you see the difference between the 5 grams of copper 2 sulfate in the 100 milliliters of water and 1 gram of copper 2 sulfate in 100 milliliters of water. Now let's calculate the molarity of each solution. Now we're going to find molarity. So basically we know that the molarity of the solution is made by dissolving 1 gram of copper 2 sulfate in 100 milliliters of H2O, which is water. We already know the molar mass of copper 2 sulfate is 159.62 grams. And we need to find moles over liters, but now we already have grams over milliliters, so we need to do dimensional analysis. So 1 gram of CuSO4 over 100 milliliters of H2O, which is copper 2 sulfate and water. We already know that 1,000 milliliters is in 1 liter. Milliliters is crossed out. And now we find copper 2 sulfate. We know that the molar mass of copper 2 sulfate is 159.62 grams, which means grams is crossed out, and 1 molar. 1 mole. Now basically you times the top and divide by this, which will get 0.063. Molarity of copper 2 sulfate. That was in 1 gram of copper 2 sulfate in 100 milliliters water. That was the first one. Now for the second one, all we do is change the 1 gram into 5 grams of copper 2 sulfate. So we do the same thing, but change from 1 to 5 grams of copper 2 sulfate over 100 milliliters of water. We know that there is 1,000 over 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter and 159.62 grams of copper 2 sulfate in 1 mole. That will get you, after times 5 times 1,000, and that's all over 100 times 159.62. After you divide 5,000 with that number, you get 0.312 molarity of copper to sulfate. As you can see, there is a great difference in the molarity of each solution. And there was only 1 gram of copper 2 sulfate in this one, and there's 5 grams of copper 2 sulfate in this one. So you can see the difference of the molarity of each solution. And that's how you solve molarity.